He crashed funerals, fed a guy's own dog, and even got hanged at WrestleMania. Well, meet the Big Boss Man, the guy who brought law and order to the WWE and a whole lot of chaos. The Big Boss Man, whose real name was Ray Traylor, wasn't just some guy they plucked off the street and handed a nightstick to before he stepped into the squared circle trailer. Was a real-life corrections officer. He worked at the Cobb County Jail in Georgia, so he knew a thing or two about laying down the law. That experience gave him a unique edge and a sense of authenticity that he brought to his character. He actually started wrestling in WCW, which some of you older fans might remember back. Then he was known as Big Bubba Rogers, and he was a mean enforcer for a manager named Jim Cornette. But it was in WWE starting in 1988 where he truly made his mark as the Big Boss Man with his imposing size, that classic black uniform, and that always there nightstick. The Big Boss Man was the ultimate tough guy. He battled some of the biggest names in the business like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, and the American Dream Dusty Rhodes. He was a force to be reckoned with, and fans loved to hate him. But what really set the Big Boss Man apart were his controversial storylines. WWE, especially during the Attitude Era, wasn't afraid to push the boundaries of what was acceptable, and the Big Boss Man was right in the middle of it all. One of the most infamous moments in his career involved the Big Show during their feud. The Big Boss Man did the unthinkable. He crashed Big Show's father's funeral. He even hooked the casket to his car and drove off with it. He taunted Big Show about his father's death. And a lot of people felt like that was going way too far even for the Attitude Era. It was pretty shocking. And who could forget his feud with Al Snow? Al Snow had this adorable little chihuahua named Pepper, who was like his best friend. Well, the Big Boss Man kidnapped Pepper. Later on, he tricked Al Snow into eating a meal, making him think it was actually Pepper. That was messed up even for a wrestling storyline. Then there was the Kennel from Hell match. It was supposed to be this crazy brawl between the Big Boss Man and Al Snow, surrounded by a pack of vicious dogs. But the whole thing was a disaster. The dogs were more interested in sniffing each other than attacking the wrestlers. It was a total flop. The Big Boss Man was involved in a lot of other wild and controversial stuff. He would insult other wrestlers' families and do all sorts of things to humiliate them, but that was his job, right? He was the bad guy, the villain you were supposed to boo, and he was really good at it. But behind all the controversy, the man behind the character Ray Traylor was actually a well-respected guy in the wrestling world. He was known for being professional and dedicated to his craft. Tragically, his career and his life were cut short on September 22nd. 2004, Traylor died of a heart attack at his home in Georgia. He was only 41 years old. His death was a huge shock to everyone in the wrestling world. He left behind a wife and 2 daughters, while the official cause of death was a heart attack at his young age, and his history of using steroids led to some speculation about what really happened. Some people believe that his past steroid use, which was pretty common among wrestlers back then, might have contributed to his heart problems. Others even wondered if that crazy hanging stunt with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 15, where he was seemingly hanging from the roof of the Hell in a cell, might have caused some kind of internal injury. No matter what the circumstances were, one thing is for sure: the Big Boss Man left a lasting legacy in professional wrestling. He was a talented performer who embraced his role as a villain, creating memorable moments that fans still talk about today. In 2016, he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, which is a huge honor. It cemented his place as one of the most iconic figures in wrestling history. So what are your favorite Big Boss Man moments? Did you think his controversial storylines went too far, or were they all in good fun? Let me know in the comments below now. If you are a true fan, make sure you don't click away, because in the upcoming minutes we will relive his career through and through. Let's get into it. Believe it or not, before he was dishing out justice in the squared circle, Ray Traylor was actually upholding it in the real world as a corrections officer in Cobb County, Georgia. But this wasn't just some gimmick, folks. Traylor brought that real-life experience and intensity to the ring when he started his wrestling career in 1985. He paid his dues, working as a jobber under his real name, facing some of the biggest names in the business at the time. But it wasn't long before someone saw his potential. That someone was the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, a legendary wrestler and book, who saw a spark in Traylor. Artists repackaged him as Big Bubba Rogers, a silent, intimidating bodyguard for Jim Cornette. And the Midnight Express, this new character with his non-nonsense attitude and impressive physique, made Traylor into a major feud with Dusty Rhodes. himself ending in a series of wild bunkhouse stampede matches. But Bubba was ambitious. He didn't want to stay in one place for too long. He wanted to wrestle everyone everywhere. So he went to a different wrestling group to WUF. And guess what he won their championship to? He even joined a group of bad guys, led by a mean dude named General Skundar Bar. They were called Devastation Inc. and caused a lot of trouble. This made Bubba even more popular. With the fans, he even wrestled in a crazy match called War Games, where it was basically a huge cage with 2 rings and his team fought against another team of really tough wrestlers. It was a wild fight. Bubba also traveled all the way to Japan to wrestle. He wanted to learn new moves and become even better. He wrestled in All Japan Pro Wrestling and learned a whole new style of wrestling. This made him an even tougher and more skilled wrestler. Then in 1988, he joined the WWF and became the Big Boss Man. He traded in his wrestling gear for a police officer's uniform, complete with a hat, nightstick, and handcuffs. He was a really convincing cop, and he used his nightstick to keep those rowdy wrestlers in line. He was a really tough guy who didn't take any nonsense from anyone. He was like a superhero in the wrestling ring. Managed by the Doctor of Style, Slick Boss Man quickly made a name for himself, feuding with some of the biggest stars in the company. He even went toe-to-toe with Hulk Hogan, the biggest name in wrestling at the time, and challenged Macho Man Randy Savage for the WWF Championship. Boss Man's path of destruction led him to form an alliance with another powerhouse, formerly Onion Gang. Together, they were known as the Twin Towers, a formidable duo that RRE Havoc on the tag team division. They battled iconic teams like the Mega Powers and Demolition, leaving a trail of defeated opponents in their wake. But in a surprising twist, the Big Boss Man turned face. In 1990, he refused to do the dirty work of his manager Slick, aligning himself with the fans and becoming a symbol of justice and integrity. This new chapter saw him feuding with his former partner A, as well as other villains like Ted DiBiase and Bobby Heenan. His new persona was cemented by his iconic entrance music, Hard Times, performed by Jimmy Jameson of Survivor. This catchy tune became synonymous with the Big Boss Man, and his fight for what's right. His new journey started in WCW. In 1996, he joined a really weird group called the Dungeon of Doom. Imagine a bunch of guys with spooky costumes trying to take over wrestling. He even fought with other members like John Tenda, who wrestled as Shark, and Glacier, who was like a ninja. But Trailer didn't like playing the bad guy with them for long. By the end of the year, he switched sides and joined the NWO, which was like the coolest group in wrestling at the time. They were like the rebels of wrestling, always causing trouble. Unfortunately, his time in the NWO didn't last. He got injured and was actually fired while he was recovering. Can you believe that he came back to WCW this time using his real name, Ray Traylor, and teamed up with the Steiner brothers to fight against the NWO? But guess what? He got betrayed again. Scott Steiner, one of the brothers, decided to join the NWO himself after losing a tough match to Goldberg. Traylor left WCW and went back to WWE. This time he returned as the Big Boss Man, but with a new, tougher look. He traded in his blue police shirt for a black SWAT team outfit and became the bodyguard for the Big Boss himself, Vince McMahon. He fought against huge stars like Stone Cold Steve Austin and Degeneration X. He even won championships, including the tag team titles with Ken Shamrock and the Hardcore Championship a few times. One of his most famous matches was against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 10. It was a Hell in a Cell match where they fought inside a giant cage. The Undertaker won, and then they did this crazy thing where they pretended to hang the Big Boss Man from the top of the cage. It was pretty shocking to see. He also had a really weird feud with Al Snow, who carried around a pet chihuahua named Pepper. They even had a match called the Kennel from Hell that was supposed to be full of vicious attack dogs, but the dogs were more sleepy than scary. Boss Man even fought with Big Show over the WWE Championship. In one of the most controversial moments, Boss Man interrupted Big Show's father's funeral and stole the casket. They had a big match at Armageddon 1999, where Big Show won. After that, Boss Man teamed up with another wrestler for a bit, but it didn't last long. He eventually left WWE. In 2003, he wrestled a few more times after that, but then pretty much retired from wrestling. On June 20th, Trailer teamed up with Greg Valentine in a match against Jim Dugan and Tonga Kid at a Christian wrestling event organized by Ted DiBiase in Arizona. Although his team lost, it was a rare and cherished Appearance for fans later that year, Trailer traveled to Japan to compete in the International Wrestling Association, IWA. He participated in a tournament for the vacant IWA World Heavyweight Championship. Trailer made it to the finals after defeating Freddy Krueger, but lost to Jim Dugan in the championship match. These matches marked the end of a legendary career outside of wrestling. Ray Trailer was a family man. At heart, he was married to Angela, his childhood sweetheart, and together they had two daughters, Lacey Bean and Megan Cheyenne. Trailer's life wasn't without challenges. In 2002, he had a serious motorcycle accident. After hitting a deer, he suffered significant injuries and spent a year recovering. Around the same time, the death of his close friend and fellow wrestler Kurt Hennig deeply affected him. In 2004, Trailer tried his hand at politics, running for commission chairman in Payne County, Georgia. Although his campaign was unsuccessful, it showed his dedication to his community. He also owned a storage business, RWD Enterprises, in Dallas, Georgia. On September 22, 2004, Ray Trailer passed away from a heart attack at his home in Dallas, Georgia. That evening, he and his family were visiting his sister, while his daughters played upstairs and his wife briefly left the room. Trailer was found unresponsive on the sofa. He was only 41 years old. The news shocked the wrestling world. Tributes poured in from fans and fellow wrestlers honoring the man who had left such a lasting mark on the sport. In the end, all we can say is that Ray Trailer, known to fans as Big Bossman, left a legacy that stretches far beyond the wrestling ring. Throughout his career, he portrayed a tough but honorable character who resonated with audiences worldwide. Whether he was enforcing the rules, battling top stars, or engaging in unforgettable storylines, he always gave his best to entertain the fans. Trailer's versatility as a performer set him apart. He could be a menacing heel or a heroine. Face seamlessly adapting to any role. His matches in both WCW and WWF showed his athleticism, charisma, and dedication to his craft. Off the screen, Trailer was equally admired. He was known as a kind and humble man who loved his family and cared deeply for his community. His loyalty to his roots in Dallas, Georgia, and his efforts to give back, whether through local politics or mentoring young wrestlers, added another layer to his legacy. In 2016, his posthumous induction into the WWE Hall of Fame solidified his place in wrestling history. The emotional tribute by his wife and daughters reminded fans of the person behind the character, a loving husband, a devoted father, and a man whose heart was as big as his impact on the sport. Big Bossman's legacy lives on in the memories of fans, the stories shared by his peers, and the moments that continue to inspire new generations of wrestling enthusiasts. And that wraps up our look at the incredible life and career of Big Bossman, from his early days enforcing the law in the ring to his unforgettable rivalries and storylines. Ray Trailer's journey in professional wrestling is one of resilience, versatility, and heart. Big Bossman wasn't just a character. He was a performer who gave everything he had to entertain millions of fans around the world. His impact goes beyond his matches. It's in the moments that made us laugh, cheer, and even cry, whether it was his wild feuds, his larger than life persona, or his dedication to his craft. Big Bossman left a mark that will never fade. We'd love to hear from you. What's your favorite Big Bossman moment? Was it his time in WCW, his epic feuds in WWE, or something else that stands out? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with fellow wrestling fans. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into wrestling history. Thanks for watching and being part of our community. Stay tuned for more stories about the legends who shaped wrestling as we know it. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and keep the spirit of wrestling alive. He crashed funerals, fed a guy's own dog, and even got hanged at WrestleMania. Well, meet the Big Bossman, the guy who brought law and order to the WWE and a whole lot of chaos. The Big Bossman, whose real name was Ray Trailer, wasn't just some guy they plucked off the street and handed a nightstick to before he stepped into the squared circle. Trailer was a real-life corrections officer. He worked at the Cobb County Jail in Georgia, so he knew a thing or two about laying down the law. That experience gave him a unique edge and a sense of authenticity that he brought to his character. He actually started wrestling in WCW, which some of you older fans might remember back then. He was known as Big Bubba Rogers, and he was a mean enforcer for a manager named Jim Cornette. But it was in WWE starting in 1988 where he truly made his mark as the Big Bossman with his imposing size. That classic black uniform, and that always their nightstick, the Big Boss Man, was the ultimate tough guy he battled some of. The biggest names in the business like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, and the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, he was a force to be reckoned with, and fans loved to hate him. But what really set the Big Boss Man apart were his controversial storylines. WWE, especially during the Attitude Era, wasn't afraid to push the boundaries of what was acceptable, and the Big Boss Man was right in the middle of it all. One of the most infamous moments in his career involved the Big Show during their feud to Big. Boss Man did the unthinkable. He crashed Big Show's father's funeral. He even hooked the casket to his car and drove off with it. He taunted Big Show about his father's death. And a lot of people felt like